Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. In today's lecture, we are going to discuss simultaneous equation models. Simultaneous equation model mean that we have more than one regression equation to discuss or to analyze or to estimate. Until now, we have been using ordinary least square to estimate the parameters of a regression equation, a simple single regression equation, where we assume, for example, that the independent variables are truly independent, they are not correlated to each other, and so on. But now, if we want to model the real life situation, we may face situations like maybe one variable may be affecting the other one, and the other one also may be affecting the first one. So both are cause as well as an effect relationship. So for example, your dependent variable is an independent variable in some other equation. Such situation is dealt with in simultaneous equation models. Normally we use indirect least square, two-stage least square, instrumental variable techniques. So we don't say bye-bye to ordinary least square. We use ordinary least square indirectly. But remember that when we use ordinary least square, we assume that there is one dependent variable and we have several explanatory variables. The explanatory variables cause the dependent variable to change. So when there is a change in the explanatory variable or variables, there is an effect on the dependent variable. But on the other hand, you may face some situations where the variable that you are calling dependent becomes an independent variable in some other situation, in some other equation. So by this I mean that maybe you have two variables that affect each other. In that situation, we cannot handle the problem with a single regression equation. So OLS deals with single equations. And when we deal with OLS, we use the techniques that we developed by optimizing the or minimizing the sum of squared errors. So we will be indirectly using ordinary least square in future. But this time we have models with more than one equation. So as I told you, we have cause and effect relationship in regressions. So the explanatory variable has an effect on the dependent variable. So you have situations in which you may think that the independent variables are not correlated to each other. But in real life, variables are interdependent. Sometimes you have situations where what you are calling independent variables are not truly independent. They may depend on other variables as well. Or the situation may be that one independent variable may depend on the other independent variable. So in this situation, OLS is not a good approach. It wouldn't provide consistent estimates. So you have to deal with it in some other way. So today we will start discussion on such situations. So remember that variables are interdependent. Maybe the explanatory variables depend on each other. Maybe you have a relationship of two variables in which one affects the other and the other affects the first one. So we model it with multiple equations, more than one equation. So if we use OLS to estimate such relationships where there is simultaneity, then this leads to simultaneity bias. The consistents are not unbiased, they are not consistent. So we may have many examples. For example, if you remember the demand and supply models, then you should remember that demand and supply are interdependent. They are simultaneously determined. So the price and the quantity, equilibrium quantity where the quantity demanded and supplied are equal, are determined together. So what if you have a regression equation where you model the quantity demanded on several variables that explain the quantity demanded, and you have quantity supplied and with several explanatory variables, but both are interdependent, so the dependent variable of one equation may be related to the error of the second, or they may be other types of relationships. So if you estimate the demand equation and supply equation individually, separately, using ordinary least square, this will not provide good estimates or consistent estimates. So you have to do something to take into account this simultaneity. So we do that in the simultaneous equation modeling. Similarly, if you remember the national income models, you remember that GDP depends on consumption, investment, but consumption in turn again depends on GDP. So GDP and consumption are related to each other in a way that consumption may have an effect on GDP and GDP may have an effect on consumption. So they are interdependent. So when you have an equation GDP on consumption and you estimate that equation using OLS, then you are not taking into account the the reason that consumption is also dependent on GDP. So this simultaneity should be handled in a good way. So we do that in simultaneous equation modeling. So number one, OLS deals with single equations. In single equations, you have some explanatory variables which are assumed to be independent and not related to each other. It is assumed that they have an effect on the dependent variable, but the dependent variable doesn't cause the independent variable to change. So with these assumptions, we have to move somewhere else. We may have to use some other techniques to take into account this simultaneity of different equations. For example, I talked about the market model. So you are seeing the market model on the screen, where quantity demanded is a function of price and income. So I have modeled as QD, quantity demanded is alpha naught plus alpha 1 P plus alpha 2 I, which is income, plus an error term called E1. At the same time, I have a supply equation. Quantity supplied is beta naught plus beta 1 price plus beta 2 into technology plus an error or residual term. You know that demand and supply are interdependent, so quantity demanded is equal to quantity supplied in the equilibrium. So the market model is solved by equating the quantity demanded and quantity supplied. So they are determined simultaneously. So you have a quantity and you have a price at the equilibrium point. And you cannot isolate these two equations and estimate them independently. For example, if you use simple ordinary least square technique to estimate the parameters alpha naught, alpha 1 and alpha 2 of the demand equation, they will not be good estimates. They will be inconsistent. So quantity supply also, if you individually apply the ordinary least square and try to estimate the beta naught, beta 1 and beta 2, which are the parameters of the supply equation, estimate is possible, but it wouldn't be a good estimate. It would be inconsistent. Similarly, you have other models. As a business student, you can consider liquidity and profitability, which may be thought to be interdependent. So if you think that you are going to look into or analyze the relationship of profitability and its determinants, what determines profitability of an organization, so you choose some variables. For example, you choose return on assets or return on equity as a proxy of profitability. You use them as variable, as an indicator of profitability. And you think that profitability may depend on liquidity, where liquidity can be thought of to be reflected by current ratio or quick ratio or some other variable. So profitability is dependent on liquidity, but profitability is also dependent on many other factors. So which we call exogenous variables. Later on, I'll tell you what the exogenous variables are. So you have profitability as a function of liquidity and some other variables. Similarly, you have liquidity also as a function of profitability. So it is not the case that only liquidity changes affect the profitability. Profitability also may affect the liquidity ratios, like current ratio and quick ratio. So they are interdependent or thought to be interdependent. So if you have a single equation, profitability on liquidity and other variables, and you estimate the parameters, you are not taking into account the fact that not only profitability has an impact of liquidity changes, the situation is that liquidity also is affected by changes in profitability. So to model such a situation, we must use more than one equation. For example, you see that profitability is modeled as alpha naught plus alpha 1 liquidity plus alpha I Fi. Alpha I shows that you have various alpha, various parameters. Fi, you have various factors affecting profitability. I have shown them as Fi, which means F1, F2, F3. You have several factors. I can range from 1 to n, and you have a residual. Similarly, at the same time, you have a second equation. Liquidity is beta naught plus beta 1 into profitability plus beta I Gi. So you have beta I as an indication of several slope coefficients of the variables Gi. So G1, G2, G3, maybe some factors that are affecting liquidity but not affecting profitability. They may be common variables as well. So as profitability is dependent on liquidity and several other variables, and liquidity also is dependent on profitability and several other variables, these several other variables may contain variables that may affect only profitability or only liquidity, but you may have common variables as well. Some variables may affect both liquidity and profitability. So you think over the theory, you model your equations, you specify your equations according to what you hypothesize, you take guidance from the previous research, and then you formulate or specify your equations, and then you try to estimate them. But usually we use ordinary least square to estimate the equations. but they are not independent equations. They may have relation with the errors of the second equation. The variables may be interdependent. So such problems give rise to the thought that we need some other models to be used instead of ordinary least square. So we have those models. Although all those models use ordinary least square indirectly, as you will see in future. So we have two equations to show the relationship of profitability and liquidity, which you are seeing on the screen, and we need to estimate them simultaneously because they are determined simultaneously. So when you use models that simultaneously determine the parameters of these two equations, then you will be able to provide consistent estimates. Now let's talk of the national income macroeconomic model. Let's confine ourselves to simple model, a three-sector model where national income, or you can call GDP, is equal to C plus I plus G, where C is consumption expenditure, I is the investment expenditure, and G symbolizes the government expenditure. So as you see on the screen, we have YT is equal to CT plus IT plus GT, where T is a subscript showing the time dimension. So GDP of a time period is dependent on consumption, is a sum of consumption and investment expenditure and government expenditure of the same time period, where investment is also dependent on income. So the second equation shows IT is alpha naught plus alpha 1 YT. This depends on the investment theory. Similarly, consumption theory, particularly the Keynesian consumption theory, shows that consumption is also dependent on national income. So CT is beta naught plus beta 1 into YT plus an error term. So similarly, you have investment as a function of income. You may have other variables as well, but this simple national income macroeconomic model is a simultaneous model. So you can't try to regress investment on national income and say that you will estimate alpha 1 properly. It's not the case. Similarly, if you try to regress C on YT, you will estimate something, but that something wouldn't be a good parameter or good estimator showing the true relationship of consumption and income. So you need some technique that deals with such models. So you saw 2 or 3 models that show simultaneously that the equations are simultaneously determined. The parameters also should be estimated in such a way that you take into account this simultaneity. So we will develop such models and we will try to estimate such models in future. Now let's speak of what we call endogenous and exogenous variables. So in a simultaneous model, for example, in a model with 2 equations, you may have several variables. Remember that mathematically, if you want to solve a model using simple algebra, you have some unknowns for which you seek values from within the model, and you want to solve them, you want to get the values of them. So remember that you need so many equations as you have the unknown variables. So if you have 4 unknowns, you need 4 equations. If you have 3 unknowns, you need 3 equations. So the number of unknowns should be exactly equal to the number of equations if you want good solutions of the parameters to solve them. Let's look into the model that you are seeing on the screen. Y1 is alpha naught plus alpha 1 Y2 plus alpha 2 X1, and Y2 is beta naught beta 1 Y1 beta 2 X2. You have 2 equations. So see that Y1 and Y2 are causing each other. And you have another variable as X1 and another variable as X2 in the second equation. So as you see that Y1 has Y2 as an explanatory variable and Y2, the second equation, has Y1 as the explanatory variable, there is simultaneity. This is a simultaneous model. You cannot estimate the parameters of equation 1 independently and the parameters of equation 2 independently without considering equation 1. So see that we have 4 variables, Y1, Y2, X1 and X2. But we have 2 equations. The number of unknowns is 4 and the number of equations is 2. So as you know that the number of equations should be equal to the number of unknowns. This is not the case here. So what should we do? So what if we get the value of some of the variables exogenously from outside the model, determined by some other process? So if we assume, for example, that X1 and X2 are the 2 variables, the values of which are already given or determined from outside the model or given by some other process, then you will call X1 and X2 exogenous variables. Why do I select X1 and X2 as exogenous? Because I see that Y1 and Y2 are causing each other. So Y1 is dependent on Y2, Y2 depends on the values of Y1. So they must be determined simultaneously from within the model. So Y1 and Y2 will be called endogenous variables, and X1 and X2 will be called exogenous variables as their values are already given. So when you have a model, to simplify the process, remember that if you have two equations, you will take two variables to be endogenous. If you have three equations, you will consider three variables to be endogenous. This is better way. And rest of the variables should be considered exogenous. Let's go deep into what is exogenous and endogenous variable. Look at the model again. On the screen, you are seeing y1 and y2 as two different equations containing y2 and y1 in the list of independent variables, and x1 and x2 as exogenous variables, what I called exogenous. So remember that if we assume that the values of x1 and x2 are given exogenously, are determined from outside the model, we already have their values are given, or we assume their values as given, or we specify some values, then we can solve these two equations. The values of y1 and y2 could be solved by simultaneously solving these two equations, if you have the values of x1 and x2. So x1 and x2 will be called exogenous, predetermined. So exogenous variables are the variables that are predetermined, their value is already given, their value is assumed or specified, or they are generated by some process from other than this model. And endogenous variables like y1 and y2 in this model are the variables which will be solved. We will get their values by solving the model. So we'll simultaneously solve these two equations and get the values of y1 and y2. It is possible. So y1 and y2 will be called endogenous variables, and x1 and x2 will be called exogenous variables in this model. So let's try to define what is exogenous and what is endogenous. So it is simple. Endogenous variables, endogenous are the variables, the values of which are determined by solving the model itself. Their values are given by a process from within the model. On the other hand, exogenous variables are the variables whose values are predetermined, given, specified, assumed, or generated by some other process. They are given from outside the model. They are externally determined. So we have used many words: externally determined, predetermined, already given, specified, assumed. So they are used for exogenous variables. Let me remind you again, if you have a simultaneous model, you see what is the number of equations. The endogenous variables number should be equal to the number of equations in order to solve the model, because you seek the values of endogenous variables from within the model. So you must have the same number of endogenous variables and equations. So what we do is we try to identify the endogenous variables that are determined simultaneously. We call them endogenous, and we say that the rest of the variables, whatever number they are exogenously determined. So you can differentiate now within, say, exogenous and endogenous variables. So look at the model again. You have y1 and y2, two equations. You know now that x1 and x2 are exogenous, y1 and y2 are endogenous variables. So what is the problem here? The problem is that you cannot use ordinary least square to determine the parameters, to find the values, to estimate the parameters alphas and betas. You cannot find good estimators. Why? Because there is simultaneity. There is cause and effect. One variable which is independent in one equation is dependent in the other equation. So it is not truly independent variable. So a variable may be dependent as well as independent. So remember that for ordinary least square, you want that the variables on the right hand side are truly independent. They are not related to each other. They are not depending for their values on the dependent variable. So this is not a two-way relationship in ordinary least square. So when you have such models with two equations or three equations or four equations, in which you have some variables which are dependent, which are on the left hand side in some equation, but you see them on the right hand side of some equation, there is simultaneity. So this is why we cannot use ordinary least square to solve such problems. We must use some other technique. Now consider the market model. You know, quantity demanded and supplied are determined simultaneously. If you have a free market, the demand and supply interaction gives you the market equilibrium price. So let's try to identify what is endogenous and exogenous, because in the previous model, which you saw just now, you may think that the variables on the left hand side are endogenous. So you had two equations for y1 and y2. So we said that y1 and y2 are endogenous, the rest are exogenous. This is not the case always. Not necessarily the values, the variables on the left hand side are endogenous. For example, look at the market model. In the market model, you have quantity demanded and quantity supplied, but you have a third. It is not an equation, equilibrium condition, stating that quantity demanded is equal to quantity supplied. So we have in fact two equations, not three. The third one is an equilibrium condition. So we have two equations, we need two variables to be endogenous and rest should be exogenously determined, or we assume them to be given, or we specify their values, we specify their level. So what to do now? Because in equilibrium, quantity demanded and quantity supplied are equal. So you cannot say that we have two endogenous variables as quantity demanded and quantity supplied. Because in fact, in equilibrium, quantity demanded and quantity supplied are the same variable. So they have the same value. So quantity, basically, the equilibrium quantity is one variable. So, but if you move to the theory of demand and supply, the market theory, the market equilibrium theory, you know that the price and quantity are simultaneously determined. So one variable must be the quantity and the second variable must be the price. So in this case, you can see that what we are calling an endogenous variable is not seen on the left-hand side of these two equations. So you have it on the right-hand side only. So don't think that all the variables that are on the left-hand side are endogenous and ones on the right-hand side are exogenous. No. You must know about the theory on the basis of which these equations have been given. So if you consider the market equilibrium theory, you know that quantity and price are two endogenous variables. So in this model, quantity and price will be called endogenous, and you had two other variables, I and T. They will be assumed to be exogenous variables. I is income and T may be technology, for example, in the supply equation. So in this model, you have quantity and price as endogenous because you had two equations. Remember, you are seeing three equations. No, the third one is not an equation, it is an equilibrium condition. So we have two equations. One is the demand equation, the second is the supply equation. So in this case, you need the same number of endogenous variables as the number of equations. So two equations, two endogenous variables. So those endogenous variables are identified as quantity and price. All the rest of the variables have to be assumed to be exogenous. So income and technology, I and T, are exogenous. E1 and E2 show the residual or the error term. Now let's move to a three-equation model to further clarify the process of identifying the exogenous and exogenous variables. So this is simple because again you are seeing a model where three of the endogenous variables y1, y2 and y3 are on the left-hand side. Remember something here. I have just symbolized the endogenous variables as yi, that is y1, y2, y3, and the exogenous variables as x, x1, x2 and x3. It is not necessary. You may have x1 and x2 and x3 which may be endogenous. So it's just labeling of the variables. So for easing your life, so we have the equations with the parameters. Normally we are denoting yi as the endogenous and x's as the exogenous variables. So look at the model. You have three equations. Note that y1 has y2 and y3 and x1 as the explanatory variable, as the explanatory variables, and y2 has y1 and y3 and x2. y3 has y1 and y2 and x3. So you can easily see that we have three equations. So we need three endogenous variables. So a quick glance of the model shows that y1, y2 and y3 are interdependent. So they affect each other. So y1 depends on y2 and y3, y2 depends on y1 and y3, y3 depends on y1 and y2. So all of these three variables depend on each other in some way. They are simultaneously determined. So we will call y1, y2 and y3 endogenous variables, and whatever number of variables you have other than these three will be called exogenous. Presently you have three variables. You may have more variables. For example, you may have x1 and x4 in the equation 1. So you may have multiple variables. So it is not necessary that always you will have the same number of explanatory variables or same number of exogenous variables as the equations. These are some easy models to make you understand how we show and how we assume which variables are endogenous and which are exogenous. So in this case, y1, y2 and y3 are the three endogenous variables. x1, x2 and x3, and there may be more variables as well, will be called exogenous. So you identify endogenous variables and then you say that the rest of the variables are exogenously determined in order to solve the model. So remember that if you have three equations, you need three endogenous variables. If you have four equations, you will be needing four endogenous variables. Rest of them are exogenous. Also remember that it is not necessary that you have exogenous variables in the model. Maybe you don't have x1 and x2 and x3. So it depends which type of models you are discussing or analyzing. Now let's move to a discussion on what is identification and how does identification help us in choice of technique. The choice of technique means that you want to know what method you should apply to get the values of the estimators. For example, alphas and betas, which you use in regression equations. How to estimate them. OLS was one technique. You may have others as well. So as you know now that we have simultaneous models with more than one equation, we have some interdependent variables, we have some endogenous variables, we have some exogenous variables. And you also know that we cannot apply OLS individually to estimate the parameters of the equations because equations are interdependent. So we need some other techniques. So for choosing which technique to apply, we must know the what we call identification status of each equation in the model. So we may have three types of categories of equations. They will be called unidentified or under-identified equations, exactly identified equations, and over-identified equations. So based on the identification status of each equation, we may apply different techniques to estimate the parameters which are consistent and unbiased, which are true representative of the population coefficients. So remember, we have three categories: unidentified or under-identified. Let me tell you briefly that if you have an equation which is unidentified or under-identified, you cannot apply any technique. It is not possible to solve such equation. So you need to do something, for example, find new variables to make the equation identified. We'll come to know what is identified. So if an equation is unidentified or under-identified, we cannot estimate its parameters. If an equation is exactly identified, we normally apply a technique called indirect least square, although we can apply others as well. 2SLS also can be applied to exactly identified equations. But truly we should apply ILS or indirect least square to estimate the parameters of the exactly identified equation. If you find that some equation is over-identified, we'll come to know how do we find that. If we know that some equation is over-identified, we cannot use OLS or ILS to estimate the parameters of such equation. We need another technique like two-stage least square or three-stage least square or instrumental variable techniques. It is also possible that if you have a model with several equations, one of the equations parameters cannot be estimated, second may be estimated by ILS, third may be estimated by 2SLS. So you may have different techniques to be applied to different equations in the same model. It is also possible that all equations are exactly identified and you apply indirect least square to those equations. It is also possible that all of the equations are over-identified and you need 2SLS to estimate the parameters of these equations. One thing is definite, that you shouldn't apply ordinary least square to simultaneous model, to a model with multiple equations where independent variables are seen. So we have three categories: unidentified, exactly identified, and over-identified equations. We'll take some examples to show you how we can know whether an equation is unidentified, exactly identified, or over-identified. First, we will do that by solving the model and finding what we call reduced form equations. I'll tell you in some time what is a reduced form equation. And we have simple ways like order condition techniques to apply to know without solving whether an equation is exactly identified or over-identified or under-identified. We have techniques like order condition, rank condition, etc. So first let's try to solve the models and know the identification status of each equation. So when we come to know the identification status, then we will be able to apply some kind of technique or choose some technique like ILS, 2SLS, etc. So first, let me tell you what is a reduced form equation. If you remember the models that we have been discussing with two equations or three equations, you see that one variable on the left-hand side may be seen on the right-hand side of some other equation. So that is an endogenous variable normally. You have exogenous variables as well. You also know that OLS shouldn't be applied. Remember that we can apply OLS to equations where the variables on the right-hand side are all exogenous. They are determined from outside, or they are not interdependent, or you have no two-way relationship. So one is the dependent variable on the left-hand side, others are the explanatory variables on the right-hand side, and there is no inverse situation. For example, it's not the case that the values of the explanatory variable are determined in terms of the values of the dependent variable, the variable on the left hand side. So if you bring your model into a form or transform your model in such a way that you don't have an endogenous variable on the right hand side, then you can apply OLS safely. So we will use OLS in our process of estimating such parameters, but we will be using it indirectly or in some other way, not directly to individual equations. So we transform the model in such a way, we transform the equations in such a way that you have no more endogenous variables on the right hand side. When you do that, the resultant equations are called reduced form equations. So equations that express endogenous variables as a function of only exogenous variables are called reduced form equations. We'll come to know how to transform the model to get such equations. Remember that when you have several equations and they are interdependent variables, we call it a simultaneous model, and we cannot use OLS. Also remember that as many as equations you have, you may have those many endogenous variables. So if you have 2 equations, you need 2 endogenous variables. If you have 3 equations, you need 3 endogenous variables. So what I told you was that we transform the model to bring it into a shape that all the endogenous variables in different equations are depending on exogenous variables only. So you have regression equations which are independent, which are not simultaneous, because if you transform the model in such a way that you have, say, 2 equations in which both equations have only exogenous variables on the right hand side, then you can safely apply OLS because the problems that I discussed earlier are not present here. So let's take an example. So look at the model given on the screen where you have 2 equations, y1 depending on y2 and x1, y2 depending on y1 and x2. You can easily identify that y1 and y2 are endogenous and x1 and x2 are exogenous variables. So let's suppose that by some way we can rewrite these equations in terms of the 2 equations given on the screen as y1 is equal to pi 1 naught plus pi 1 1 x1 plus pi 1 2 x2 plus v1, which is an error term, and the second equation as well where y2 depends on x1 and x2. So you can easily see that in these 2 equations on the right hand side you don't have the endogenous variables y1 and y2. On the previous model, which was not transformed, which was the actual model, which we call a structural model, we had y2 and y1 as part of the right hand side of the equation of y1 and y2. So but when we transform it, we'll see how to do that. When we transform it, now we don't have y1 and y2 on the right hand side. So x1 and x2 are exogenous, and in these 2 equations you have only exogenous variables on the right hand side. So these 2 equations will be called reduced form equations, and this model is a reduced form model. But let me tell you something else. If you have a model, the original model which you saw, y1 on y2 and x1 and y2 on y1 and x2, you had parameters alpha naught, alpha 1, alpha 2, beta naught, beta 1 and beta 2. They are called structural parameters. The parameters of the original equation without transformation, where you have endogenous variables on the right hand side, are called structural parameters. So alpha 1, alpha 2, beta naught, beta 1, etc. are called structural parameters. As you are seeing the second model where we have transformed it in such a way that y1 is dependent on x1 and x2 and y2 on x1 and x2. We don't have endogenous variables on the right hand side. The coefficients are labeled as pi with some subscript like 1 naught, 1 1, 2 1, 2 2, etc. These pi's, you can use other symbols as well. They are called reduced form coefficients. So the original coefficients are called structural parameters, and the coefficients, the slope coefficients and the intercept in the reduced form equations are called reduced form coefficients. As I told you, in the reduced form equations, we don't have endogenous variable on the right hand side, so there is no problem in applying ordinary least square to these equations. So if we apply OLS, the regression techniques that you learned, to find the values of these pi's, these reduced form coefficients, and if it is possible to use these reduced form coefficients to indirectly get the values of the structural parameters, alphas and betas are the structural parameters. So let me repeat what I was telling you. You have some structural parameters, alphas and betas in this case. You have some reduced form coefficients, pi's, pi 11, pi 12, pi 21, etc. As you don't have endogenous variable on the right hand side, you can apply OLS. If you apply OLS and get the values of these pi's, these reduced form coefficients, and if there is a way to use these reduced form coefficients to get the values of alphas and betas indirectly, we call it an indirect least square technique. And we do that when we have exactly identified equations. But let's move to what is an exactly identified equation. So let me tell you what is an exactly identified or under-identified or an over-identified equation. So we just discussed that there may be a possibility to estimate or to calculate or to compute the values of alphas and betas, the structural parameters, with the help of the reduced form coefficients pi's. Yet we haven't discussed how to get the reduced form equations. We will do that. But if we have them, and we can express all the structural parameters of an equation in terms of the reduced form coefficients, for example, we can express alpha naught, alpha 1 and alpha 2 in terms of only these pi's, these reduced form coefficients, then we say that the equation is exactly identified. If we cannot express all the structural parameters of one equation in terms of the reduced form coefficients, we call it an unidentified or under-identified equation. So let me repeat. If we try to express alphas or betas or structural parameters of an equation in terms of the reduced form coefficients, so we express them in some expressions where you have only these pi's. If we cannot do that, the equation is unidentified or under-identified. If we are able to express them in a single way, in a unique way, in terms of the reduced form coefficients, so we are able to have expressions in terms of pi's for the structural parameters, alphas or betas or whatsoever you have, we call the equation exactly identified equation. Now it is also possible that you may be able to express the structural parameters, alphas and betas, in terms of pi's, the reduced form coefficients, in more than one way. When you can do that in more than one way, we say that the equation is over-identified. So we have three status of identification. Unidentified, when you cannot estimate or express the structural parameters in terms of reduced form coefficients. We have exactly identified equations when you can express the structural parameters in terms of reduced form coefficients in only one way. We have over-identified equations when you can express these structural parameters in terms of the reduced form coefficients in more than one way. This is an over-identified equation. So let's move to examples now. Before we look into the example, let me tell you that we have a criterion which is called exclusion criterion. If we have one variable which is not present or seen in one equation on the right hand side, but you have it in the second equation on the right hand side, the equation may be identified, exactly identified or over identified. But let's move to the example to know actually what I am saying. So consider a model that you have seen earlier. You have looked into what is exogenous and what is endogenous in that model. So we'll see how to solve it in order to decide whether the equations or equation is exactly identified or under identified or over identified. So you have two equations, y1 and y2. y1 and y2 are endogenous, x1 and x2 are exogenous variables. So as we have two equations, now we want to get the reduced form equations. As I told you, reduced form equations are the equations where you don't have the endogenous variable on the right hand side. So see how we do that. Let's substitute the value of y2 from equation 2 into the y2 which is given on the right hand side of equation 1. So when we do that, you are seeing an expression, a long expression, y1 is equal to some parameters plus some expression into x1 plus some expression into x2. So you have expressed y1 in terms of x1 and x2. So how we did that? We just substituted the value of y2, which is beta naught plus beta 1, y1 plus beta 2, x2 plus e2, in place of, instead of the expression y2, the variable y2 in equation 1. So variable y2 vanishes, and instead of y2 you have an expression which contains y1 and x1 and x2. Then we will transform one term which contains y1 to the left hand side. So we have y1 only on the left hand side. The resultant equation which you are seeing is y1 is equal to, the first term is alpha naught plus alpha 1 beta naught divided by 1 minus alpha 1 beta 1 plus so on. So you can see that in this way we have expressed y1 in terms of x1 and x2 only. You don't have an endogenous variable. This is a reduced form equation. But we normally label these expressions you are seeing as intercept, as a coefficient of x1, as a coefficient of x2. We label them by using the symbol pi. As you are seeing the third equation in the end of this slide, y1 is pi 1 naught plus pi 1 1 x1 plus pi 1 2 x2 plus u1. So in fact, pi 1 naught is equivalent to the first term of the previous equation. That is, pi 1 naught is alpha naught plus alpha 1 beta naught divided by 1 minus alpha 1 beta 1. Similarly, the coefficient of x1, alpha 2 over 1 minus alpha 1 beta 1, is labeled as pi 1 1. And the third one, the coefficient of x2, alpha 1 beta 2 by 1 minus alpha 1 beta 1, is labeled as pi 1 2. So how to label them? We use the symbol pi, and we have, as you noted, two subscripts. For example, pi 1 naught means 1 and naught, two subscripts. The first subscript may show the number of equation. For example, this is the reduced form of the first equation of y1. So the first subscript in three of these pi's is 1, which shows these pi's are related to the first equation. The second subscript, 0, 1 and 2, they are the parameter number. So normally we use naught or 0 to identify the intercept, the term without a variable. And we use 1 and 2 as you used alpha naught, alpha 1, alpha 2. So 0, 1, 2, they show the parameter number. So pi 1 naught is the intercept of the reduced form equation belonging to the first equation. 1, 0 means, 1 means first equation, 0 means the initial parameter. Pi 1, 1 will symbolize pi related to the first equation, and the second one, because this is 1, 1, the second one shows that it is the parameter number 1, in fact the second parameter. So pi 1, 2 will show pi of the first equation and the second parameter, parameter number 2. Because you have an initial parameter shown as 0 or not, so in fact pi 1, 2 is the third parameter, or the second slope coefficient, the slope coefficient of x2. So this is how we label these expressions. So we transform the model. So in this equation, y in terms of pi's and x's doesn't contain an endogenous variable. So this is the first reduced form equation which we have derived. So if we substitute this first equation which we derived into the second one, we can get the second reduced form equation. For example, if you look into the screen, you will see that we have y1 is equal to pi 1 naught plus pi 1 1 x1 plus pi 1 2 x2 plus u1. u1 is a composition of different error terms. If when you solve the equations, you have different terms containing the residuals. You will bring them together and label them as u1. You can use u, v, epsilon, any symbol to symbolize this residual part. You are also seeing that we just substituted the value of this y1 in the equation y2 and solved it, manipulated it algebraically, and we got an expression for y2 in terms of x1 and x2. Again, you see, in the end we have two terms, beta u1 plus e2. Both contain residuals. We will bring them together, both of them, and label them as u2, as you see in the next line. We solve for y2 because you see we have a term containing y2 on the left hand side. When we bring it to the right hand side, we have y2 as beta naught plus alpha naught beta 1 divided by 1 minus alpha 1 beta 1 and so on, the equation you are seeing. Again, in the same fashion we did with the first reduced form equation, we'll be labeling these expressions with pi's. So if you note, the last equation shows y2 is pi 2 naught plus pi 2 1 x1 plus pi 2 2 x2. Let's see what this 2 naught, 2 1 and 2 2 mean. As I told you, we have two subscripts. The first subscript is 2, which shows that these pi's, these reduced form coefficients, belong to the second equation. The second subscript shows 0, 1 and 2, which mean the initial parameter, the first slope coefficient, the second slope coefficient. So for example, pi 2 1, pi with a subscript 2 1 shows pi from equation 2 and slope coefficient number 1. This is how we use the subscript to identify the reduced form coefficients. So now you have two equations, two reduced form equations. Reduced form equations, remember, don't contain the endogenous variables on the right hand side. If you look at the screen, you will be seeing that we have brought them together. First you have the model, the original model, which we call the structural model, which has parameters alphas and betas, which we call structural parameters. And then by the process I just showed you, we transform them into two reduced form equations, one for y1, second for y2, which contain the coefficient pi's, which are called reduced form coefficients. Now note that these two equations have no endogenous variable on the right hand side, so we can apply ordinary least square to them. Later what will we do is that we'll try to estimate these pi's in terms of by using OLS, and we will may be able to find the values of alphas and betas with the help of these pi's. But we'll do that later on, where the reduced form coefficients are symbols for some expressions in the structural parameters. We'll do that. What do I mean by this statement? I mean that we'll try to express alphas and betas in terms of these pi's. Please look at the next slide. You remember that we, instead of using these heavy expressions, we labeled them as pi 1 naught, pi 1 1, pi 1 2, pi 2 naught, etc. So how we label them is given on the slide. For example, pi 1 0 is given as alpha naught plus alpha 1 beta 1 over 1 minus alpha 1 beta 1. Similarly, you have expressions for other pi's, other reduced form coefficients. So if we try to solve the above, we see that we can express the structural parameters alphas and betas in form of reduced form coefficients. For example, if you divide pi 2 1 by pi 1 1, all of it will be cancelled and you will have beta 1. This means beta 1 can be written as pi 2 1 divided by pi 1 1. So if we write beta 1 as pi 2 1 by pi 1 1, we are writing beta 1 in terms of only the reduced form coefficients. If we can do that for all the betas, then the second equation will be exactly identified. And if you can do that for all alphas, the first equation would be exactly identified. So let's look into the slide. So you just saw that we are trying to express the alphas and betas in terms of pi's. Technically speaking, we are trying to express the structural parameters in terms of the reduced form coefficients. We just saw that pi 2 1 over pi 1 1 is given as beta 1. So if you divide pi 2 1 over pi 1 1, you get beta 1. If you divide the expression for pi 2 1 over the expression for pi 1 1, you will be left with beta 1. So beta 1 can be written as pi 2 1 over pi 1 1, as I just told you. Similarly, we can write all the betas in terms of the reduced form coefficients in this case. As you are seeing, beta 1, beta naught and beta 2, all of them are equal to some expression where you have only pi's in those expressions. We are able to express all these betas in terms of these pi's. So betas belong to the second equation, and we can express all these betas in terms of the reduced form coefficients in one unique way. So we call this equation exactly identified equation. Similarly, for the next one, you are seeing that alphas also can be expressed in one single way in terms of the reduced form coefficients. So as we can express all the structural parameters of equation 1 in terms of the reduced form coefficients, we'll say that equation 1 is also exactly identified. To wind up today's lecture, let me tell you that if we wouldn't have been able to express these alphas and betas, the equations would have been unidentified. Maybe it was possible that we expressed betas in terms of reduced form coefficients, but we were not able to do that for alphas. In that case, second equation would be identified, the first one wouldn't be identified. So if we are also able to express these alphas or betas in more than one way, so if we have one expression, alpha 1 is equal to pi 1 2 over pi 2 2, but we have another expression also for alpha 1, maybe in some cases we'll do that. So we are expressing alpha 1 in two or more ways in terms of the reduced form coefficients. So we'll say that alpha 1, as it belongs to the first equation is over-identified. So if we can express them in one way, we have exactly identified equation. If we can express them in more than one way, we have over-identified equations. Thank you very much.